Hello, my name is Kaylee Elliott, and I was asked today to present on dioxin and furan. So to start off, I want to talk a little bit about what dioxin and furan are. Dioxin is a substance extremely toxic to mammals with a wide variation in sensitivity among species. Long-term exposure of test mammals to lesser amounts of dioxin can affect reproduction, cause birth defects, damage the liver, and suppress the immune system. Dioxin is a general name that refers to a group of several different compounds that all share similar chemical properties. Furan is a highly volatile liquid, a clear, colorless, flammable liquid cyclic ether. It causes mutations in the genes of animals. Inhalation exposure to the substance can also cause eye and skin irritation and central nervous depression. I just wanted to note that most of the information presented focuses on dioxin because this is how these chemicals were brought to public attention, and furan chemically is closely associated with dioxin. Before I talk more about dioxin, I wanted to mention what the EPA is. The EPA stands for the Environmental Protection Agency. This is a government agency that is in place to protect human health and the environment. Below you can see more information on the role of the EPA. There's also a link to their website at the bottom of the screen to find more information. So starting with the history of dioxin, it was used in U.S. agriculture in the 1940s as an herbicide. Dioxin was first brought under the EPA's radar in 1985 by the VA, Veterans Affairs. Veterans from the Vietnam War were complaining of numerous diseases including skin conditions, cancers, nervousness, vision and hearing impairments, numbness in the arms and legs, and birth defects in their children. The veterans were seeking financial compensation through the federal government because they attributed their diseases to exposure to Agent Orange. At this point in time, dioxin had only been tested on animals. No record of human or environmental impacts were recorded in the 1970s. There was only one incident of reported human exposure to dioxin, which caused chloracne, which are basically cysts and blackheads that cover the entire exposed area of skin. Agent Orange was an herbicide used in the Vietnam War between 1962 and 1971 that contained dioxin. Before 1970, the average amount of dioxin people exposed to ranged from 1 to 5 parts per million, and in some cases up to 47 parts per million. But the Clean Air Act passed in 1970 capped dioxin emissions at 0.1 parts per million. But even more evidence of dioxin's impact was needed because there was still little information of dioxin's impact on human health. And below you can see a brief description of what parts per million means. Once the EPA decided to take action, there were several organizations that expressed concerns about dioxin following the veterans' complaints. These included Veteran Affairs, Dow Chemical, the American Medical Association, the Center for Disease Control, the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, Veterans of Foreign Wars, Vietnam Veterans of America, the Sierra Club, and the Environmental Defense Fund. The EPA led 2 health and environmental risk assessments for dioxin. The first was in 1985, which led the EPA to classify dioxin as a probable human carcinogen based on the data from animal research. A carcinogen is simply a substance that causes cancer. Then in 1988, assessments were revised by the Scientific Advisory Board. The Scientific Advisory Board filed a report that was a good start for the EPA to develop new methods for estimating human exposure to dioxin and relating exposure levels to health risks. In 1990, there was a conference to discuss current research being conducted on dioxin. At the conference, they were able to conclude that humans and animals most likely reacted the same to dioxin exposure and decided there needed to be a new risk assessment of dioxin to document the impacts of human health as well as the impact to the environment. This chart details what foods usually contain the highest levels of dioxin was done by Wageningen University in the Netherlands. Next, we will talk about the dangers of dioxin. Dioxin is produced as a byproduct of combustion of some chemical manufacture, chlorine bleaching of pulp and paper, and other industrial processes, as well as medical waste incineration and cement manufacture. Dioxin accumulates in the air, water, and food supply and will eventually accumulate in fat tissue of people and animals the longer they are exposed to dioxin. Dioxin is able to accumulate in the environment and our body so easily because it has a half-life of 100 years. A half-life is simply the time it takes for the radioactivity of a specified substance to decrease to half its original value, or, put another way, the amount of time it takes for half of the substance to decompose. Another aspect of dioxin that makes it so stable is that it has benzene rings, which are some of the most stable chemical structures in nature. This means the bonds of the chemical do not break easily, so it can last in the environment for a long time. For more detailed information on the chemical properties of the benzene rings, please visit the website below. My colleague Dom found 3 dioxin case studies in his research. The first study observed dioxin in marine copepods and fish. This revealed dioxin's ability to accumulate in food supplies and noted that predators tended to have more dioxin than prey. The next study observed dioxin levels in stack gas and surrounding atmosphere. Stack gas is simply the gas coming from an industrial chimney. They found that dioxin levels in the air increased with dioxin levels in stack gas. The last study tracked dioxin levels in breastfeeding women in dioxin-rich areas of Italy. These women lived in areas with factories that emitted high levels of dioxin. They used breast milk samples to study accumulation of dioxin in humans. They found that dioxin levels in breast milk increased with increased exposure time. Here's a list of other known cases of dioxin exposure. In 2011, the EPA released its final report on dioxin titled Dioxin Toxicity Equivalency Factors. This report recognized dioxin as a carcinogen that causes reproductive and developmental problems, damages the immune system, and interferes with hormones as well. For more information on the EPA's research on dioxin and current policy, please visit the website listed below. And this is a diagram to help illustrate how dioxin can end up in our bodies and what impacts that may have on our health. There's a current lawsuit against Dow Chemical in Saginaw County, Michigan for alleged dioxin contamination. Here's the most recent update on the case. Monsanto is another company that has been involved in dioxin-related court cases. Monsanto is an agricultural biotechnology corporation. Here's a link to provide more information on some of the cases. And these are the works cited for this presentation. I appreciate you listening. Thank you.